rain is so warm, feels like sweat on my skin.
All right, we are back live in East Philadelphia, Ropeadope TV. Still playing around with the right volumes. Lewis Marks here, Fabian Brown. Welcome everybody. Feeling a little low key here tonight. It's been a big week.
It's been a huge week,
right? We were getting ready, working through the bugs on this little experiment of ours, and what did I just say? That I am crippled with self-doubt. So, you know, I don't know what compels me or us to just try new shit that we've never done and not even read how to do it and just get on. And we found out a lot of things. We learned a lot about, you know, where the volume should be, trying to do this thing without edits so it's more real and more direct. And anyway, we've learned a lot. This is episode 2. Technically, it feels like a bit of a chapter closing. So we started the week. We finally went with our first episode, which is going to air in a few days. And then Christian Scott popped in. Did an interview with Christian. Had to move the couches around because of the light. It got right into some heavy discussion, which is kind of the relationship that Christian and I have, I think.
A lot of history.
He's a deep thinker.
Yeah.
And I am occasionally. And then Terrace Martin popped in at the end of the week. And so, if you're watching this now, you already know that. You've seen those. But now we're settling back for episode 2, talking about what's happening at Ropeadope, and it just feels like reflecting on that is part of what this one's going to be about.
I love it.
Right? I like to think about the week. But we will start with, always, the music, right? So we came in with the record that's coming out in, I think, next Friday. Just checking the ever-changing and ever-growing Ropeadope schedule here. Oh, we're all the way down there, are we? All right, 11/11. So we got a little bit. Max Fischer. Max Fischer is what you're listening to, and I encourage everybody to go and listen to more. But I'll tell you a little bit about Max. So we'll start at the beginning, right?
Always at the beginning. So I got a question, because I think the most exciting thing being here at Ropeadope is knowing the behind the scenes on where you're meeting all these guys, because the roster is just ridiculous. So tell me how you and Max Fischer, how that all started.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a line in a movie, a cult movie called Buckaroo Banzai.
I haven't seen it.
Peter Weller, John Lithgow, and Peter Weller plays a neurosurgeon / rock star, and they're doing brain surgery with Jeff Goldblum, and he says, don't touch that. You never know what it might be connected to. So I think that's the first thing that comes to mind when I think about this. So we talked in episode 1 about Atlanta records. I think we talked about Atlanta records a little bit because we had some stuff coming out, but maybe not. Maybe that was one of the practice runs, but we will have people on the show in the future, about, you know, from Atlanta, and we can tell a little bit of that story. But needless to say, I met a gentleman by the name of Kari Cabral Simmons.
Okay.
At 800 East Studios.
Okay.
In Atlanta, Georgia, and it was introduced to the people there by Brian Hurst from SoulAndJazz.com. But Kari is the bass player with India Ari.
Okay.
And he's a key member and part of... We're back on shuffle.
It doesn't go right into the thing.
I don't know. I got to fix this thing. We'll come back. We'll come back around. We'll cut the music and come back around. So I met Kari, along with a bunch of people. Daz IQ, Freddie Luster, like all these people who are involved in a similar to the 5 Spot story
right.
in Atlanta. I can't remember the name of the place. somebody will send it in and correct or tell me what it was. A place downtown where they all came up. They were all playing. Kari, toured with India and does his own music. We had an album just out, Jiva, Kari Cabral and Jiva on Atlanta Records. And turns out that Max Fischer is from Philadelphia, lives in Philadelphia. Friend of Kari's from way back. They teach together.
Okay.
They're both teachers of students in the Philadelphia area, but this is private teaching.
Right.
Somebody who a sports fan in Philadelphia would recognize in a second, a name, which I'm going to not say on the air, but a prominent, not sports figure, but someone in the business of sports here in the Philadelphia area.
Interesting.
Yep, lives right down the road, just east of East Philadelphia. Anyway, private tutors together, I think, for the same people. And Max came over, connected with me up at the local bar. He'd gotten my info from Kari, and we sat down and talked. So right away, I knew this is a really interesting cat, right? So blue eyes from Russia. Max is from Moscow. But he's got the root. So it's a really interesting contrast. And you think of a blues musician, you're not thinking of a guy with blue eyes from Russia, right? But he's got it. You heard his guitar coming in.
But it has to be a hell of a
play the
story.
guitar like it really is. And I'll tell you what, Max is so different, so enigmatic. He tells me stories like you wouldn't believe. He's a mentor to some people, some characters, and has been in some really unusual situations that he tells me about. They're kind of, I don't know how private they are, but he is really one of the most unusual people I've met in his experience. It's really something. It's mysterious and interesting all at the same time. But Max and I talked about a couple of different things, some proposals that were on the table, and he mentioned that he also, had his own record coming up. And I said, I'm in, let's go. So he's brought this record to us finally, and I think what was interesting about this is that process got him like in gear. Okay, now I'm signed. I gotta get a record done. I gotta get this done. I've been working on it for years. Like, let's get it done.
Motivated.
So it's a really interesting side story, and of course we'll probably go over time if I stay with this, but we'll just do this. Max's dad, I believe same name, not sure, is a Nazi hunter.
It's a Nazi.
He's a Nazi hunter.
Mm-hmm. Like today,
but not like he's going out, Right. They use that term, but that's it. So there was everybody knows this. You hear stories of the Nazi art, the Jewish art that was stolen by the Nazis.
Right.
So there's this fascinating story. Look it up about art that was stolen that was never reclaimed. And there's one man who was pushing really hard to have a consolidated database that could be shared with all customs agents at every airport in the world. And he worked for years and years and years to get it done. And then one day, some dude comes through customs in Brussels maybe or somewhere with a small painting, and it was in the database. It was a Toulouse-Lautrec painting. And it's identified as one of the missing Toulouse-Lautrec paintings from the Nazi era. And they trace it back to the story of this dude who's been living second generation in an apartment in Berlin with all of these paintings. And every now and then when he needs money, he goes across the border and he sells a record to pay.
Sells a painting.
Sells a painting, sorry, a record. Yeah, that's what I do. I want to sell records. Sells a painting, right? And they caught the guy. And they found this, multi-million-dollar treasure trove
of all these
of art that is then this is going to be a problem with the shuffle. I don't know what the deal is.
So weird.
All right, well, you know what? We're going to come back to that. Interesting stuff.
That's crazy.
I'm not
story.
sure Max wanted me to tell that story, but I think it's really, really interesting. It's
Nazi
great
hunter.
stuff. Max on his own is accomplished, interesting, international traveler who does some really amazing things, and is on the tip to being like one of the healers, one of the people who are changing things on the planet, and the music is part of that. And he tells some very personal stories in that record, and the blues guitar is really, really excellent. So, all right, we're gonna move on. Hashtag that guy talks too much.
But when the story is
I didn't even get to read his bio. All right, we're gonna have to move. We gotta move. Let's go.
push.
Here's one that's coming out. So this is an interesting record because it was Kickstarted campaign, a crowdfunding campaign in Ireland by a gentleman named Killian King.
Okay.
The band is Atlas. Killian King and Killian Doheny. I don't, I
Something
can't.
Irish.
I don't speak Irish, but Killian Cillian. He was a member of a band that put a record out with us back in the spring. My memory is shot. Anyway, he came to me with this. It's really fascinating music. I sense a movement there where people are trying to move the historical music of Ireland
Okay.
into jazz. And we do a little bit of that, like with the steel pan with Jonathan Scales, and this, bringing this instrument, the concertina, I believe. I heard this record. There was a video that came with it. It's going to come out. Beauty is the only thing I can say. It just makes me feel good. It's beautiful stuff. So this is what's different about this is it was crowdfunded. So they're going to release this in Ireland. So if you're in Ireland, you're going to see this out on 11/11 or 11/18. Where does it say? Ireland only, November 18th.
Okay.
And you're going to see it here in the States and the rest of the world in late January or early February. Late January, January 27th. It's hard to balance out the sound here, but take a little listen for a minute.
The instrumentation.
Kind of hear him keeping that tradition and trying to move into new territory, right?
With the synths, man, and the time signature, being in 3, that was a lot different. And hearing that instrument, say that again,
I think it's a concertina.
Concertina.
Yeah, I'm gonna Google that right now, but
it's like the little keyboard.
yeah, I mean some version of an accordion. It's a free reed musical instrument, like accordion and harmonica.
Love it.
With bellows, and it's a little more portable, a little more interesting, but I think it captures that traditional Irish feel, but you can tell they're just kind of pushing forward, and that's what interests me.
Well, especially with the
People who are like, well,
improvisation.
let's do something different with this. Yeah. All right, well, we're gonna in the background. It was a great record that we put out earlier in the year. Angelo More and the Brand New Step. Angelo More from Fishbone. And there's a character. Fascinating, man. Underrated, underappreciated. Fishbone, Angelo More. That's all I can say. I was talking to somebody about it today, who works in radio promotion, who handles major stuff. And he's like, that's all I play. It's, and Fishbone, successful band, but still hasn't been recognized for what they do. Bad Brains today, nominated, inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I didn't see that.
It's was pretty fascinating because there were a lot of years there where Bad Brains was kind of that underappreciated band as well. Anyway, so if people haven't checked out Angelo More record, it's up there somewhere. Angelo More and the Brand New Step, done with the Rondo Brothers in San Francisco. Great record, but they're just dropping this remix from Quickie Mart. DJ Quickie Mart, I assume. It's going to be out in a week or so, and that gives us a little time to talk. Great song about karma.
Remix.
And then we're going to roll into, from there, a great song from that record called Killer Weed. Who wrote it? Do you know it?
I heard it. Reggae feel.
A story about Humboldt County.
Brother Lynch.
There you go. There's his coming up. A lot of different things. I should know the writer, but I don't. At any rate, let's just kick back. I'm tired.
But if they only knew what the last 7 days were, that would explain everything.
Kids, don't hang around with musicians. They'll wear you out.
Yeah, if my kids are watching this, you're not allowed to hang out with musicians.
There you go. Wait, you're a musician.
Yeah, that's why we don't hang out.
How do you feel about the last week?
I feel great about it. Just the ability to kind of hear the story behind the story of the music. That's what's most appealing to me. You hear the records, that's great, but then you get to meet the people who created that and learn about their process and what brings it to that point. That's the fascinating thing for me. That's the stuff that people want to hear and learn more about than anything.
You had a good number of questions for both Christian and Terrace.
And they haven't stopped. Those questions have not stopped. Like, if I can have them right now, like, hey, I was just thinking about...
Raised more questions than answers.
Well, that's what happens. One question leads to another. Leads to another. What I will say that both of these guys, their message goes way beyond their music. And not what they're trying to do, but what they are doing and how they're bringing other musicians and other artists up through the ranks. You don't see that enough in the music industry, and I think people need to pay attention to that. It's going to be inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, why is that? I mean, is it just that it isn't talked about? Like, they don't talk about what the real motivation for people is. I mean, I read interviews and stuff. It's just like the sound bites are killing me. Part of the reason for this show is just like same questions get asked.
It's like vanilla. It's like they're programmed to ask the same boring stuff, but when you let the artist just talk, you may probe them with a question, but when they're really talking about when they're bringing their culture up front and talking about how their culture shaped their music, and their community shaped their music, I mean, that's what these guys, that's what Dallas is doing.
Right, and also what their vision is, and the fact that they're doing music, that they're not just a musician.
Right.
They're statesmen, right? In a way, like into your community, and they have a sense that they have to be leaders, and that they want to put their healing or their changes out into the world to try to make the world a better place. It's fascinating to me.
It's like a calling for them. Just reflecting, listening to Terrace talk. There was multiple times where he said that he has to take off that musician hat, and put these other hats on, and it's not about him. It's not about me. It's about we. That theme just kept coming up over and over and over again. I can't wait till that episode is released. People's wigs are going to be blown back, man.
Yeah, mine blew right off.
Sorry, Lewis.
Thank you for that reference. That was perfect. Man, throw me a softball.
Still got my wig.
Yeah. Terrace Martin is a truly unique individual. It's hard. So many people all of them are really unique and interesting people. You know, Kuma Bradley, who's a nurse in the day, and then he plays jazz at night. You know, but Terrace is a unique individual on an international, on a global scale. Like, there's a reason why he's in the position he is, and I just hope we see some, you know, everything that he wants to do and change. Same with Christian Scott.
Coming to fruition.
So many. Get moving. And this time is right for that, you know? It's time for musicians to take the lead, not just in a, here's my music and my words and my message, but as individuals, you know? As statesmen for the new way, a new global way. Not to get, you know, too idealistic right there, but I believe it. So
it was apparent on stage too, not to digress, but you know, having Christian in at the store and then going to hear him play at South in Philadelphia, you know, his stage presence, he commanded that room. And not only through his horn and playing, because that's expected, but it was the banter in between the songs, how he enrolled the whole entire audience. I mean, eating at the palm of his hand, story after story, appropriate to the song. You know, he played, you know, he edified every musician and told a backstory on how they met one another and how significant that musician was in his creation of music. Christian's a stand-up guy. Both of those guys, man, it's been a pleasure hearing their backstory and experiencing that. It really was.
It's great. Yeah, nothing but respect for these cats and for all of them, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it. We're going to do two things here. So we got Killer Weed running in the background. We got the shuffle right. I really don't know how to make the shuffle right. The shuffle not happen. So
we're going to Google that.
Cut. These are the mistakes, folks. All right, so I've got some things happening right now. You know, most of the time I don't really know. You know, this is just like a kind of keep your hands and feet inside the car at all times kind of vibe at Ropeadope. And there's also the Wallace and Gromit cartoon where the cat's laying down the tracks in front of the train as the train's moving. And it feels like that. But something is cooking right now, and I just want to talk about real quick about everything that's coming up here. I think we can say all this. I know that in those interviews that Christian and Terrace kind of let some secrets out about what might be happening here. But I'm going to just run down the Ropeadope schedule, talk about some of the things that are coming up. We mentioned last week that Tommaso Cappelato record is coming out, already getting tons of love from the industry. The Four Corners out of Dallas, out of Atlanta, my mistake. Need to pay attention to that record, especially if you're a Snarky Puppy or Funky Knuckles fan. That's gonna be good. RC and the Grits, November 4th. Known as Erica's band, but boy, so much more than that. These are some bad cats, as they say. Yeah.
Every player has played with everyone that you would ever want to play with.
Max Fischer, we heard some of that today. Waiting, and really excited about Spanky McCurdy. November 11th, maybe a little bit later. Call me Spanky. Artist First Records bringing in a new hip-hop record from Sugar Tongue Slim. It's amazing. We got a rock record coming from a band called Escaper out of New York. We've got Atlas, as we mentioned and played tonight. There's going to be a live Diggable Planets record hitting right here via Artist First Records. That's down at the mix and master spot.
That's right.
No overdubs, but figuring out where to cut in and cut out and which tracks to be on the record. Then we roll over to New Year. We're gonna take a little break. December and January over here, and there we go. See how I'm getting better at this.
Practice.
We're gonna go out with step backwards for a minute before we talk about the future. Old school Ropeadope.
Some legacy.
And I'm going to break on the schedule. We'll talk about the rest of that in a second. So it's an old track on a Ropeadope record from 2003 probably. The band is Tin Hat Trio. The song is a classic. And the voice is Mr. Willie Nelson. So these are some interesting things that have happened at Ropeadope in the past that we'd like to pay tribute to every now and then. But I want to say real quick before as it plays through, just a quick shout to people out there in the musical community who are hurting, because there are those that have not made it and have moved on. I know a lot of people, it's such a tight-knit community sometimes, and when someone feels some pain and someone passes away, you know, in any part of the world, I watch it spread and see all the people that are connected and the people that are hurting. So it's a great song. Willow, weep for me. And it just reminds me to take a minute, be sad, think about music, and then move forward. And just want to stop for a second and say that. And then I'll... That brought something up for me. Yeah. I was listening to Dallas Cat, Sean Martin, earlier today, and on one of his tracks, he talks about, it's an interlude, and he says a quote, and I wrote it down here because it was pretty powerful, so excuse me while I'm reading this, but so Sean Martin says, "I want to live such a life that when death comes, people don't mourn because I died, they'll celebrate because I lived." Let's take that home and we'll talk about the future next time.
Whisper to the wind, say that love and say, leave my heart breaking and making evermore. Murmur to the night to hide her starry light, so none may find sighing, crying all alone. Weeping willow tree, weeping sympathy, bend your branches down on the ground and cover me. When the shadows fall, bend your willow and weep for me.
Weep for me.
Weep for me. And weep for me.